Chapter 15, Learning a Sweet Lucrative Scam. While awaiting trial, Boxer was housed in Los Angeles County Men's Central Jail in Module 1700, the maximum security section known as High Power, and he found himself on the same tier as M.S. Daniel Cuate Grajeda. During his stint at Palm Hall 6 months earlier, Enriquez had joined others in voting for Grajeda's death. Since then, Cuate had survived a September stabbing attack. Now, Boxer got on the phone to Rocky Luna and Weddle Shai Shryrock and told them, "Just give me the word, I'll take care of it." They told him to stand by. In High Power, Boxer then met the legendary John Stinson, a top-ranking member of the Aryan Brotherhood prison gang, who was doing life for murder. The 35-year-old Stinson was tall and bald-headed, with Nazi tattoos emblazoned on his skin and jailhouse lawyer smarts that had kept him in the county jail for 6 years instead of prison. There, he was the architect of a massive drug ring. Prosecutors estimated that he was making at least $5,000 a week while locked up in a maximum security. Stinson was making so much money that he was investing some of it in Disney stock. Boxer liked him immediately. Also, Stinson was a longtime crime buddy of Cuate's. They had robbed and murdered a drug dealer in Long Beach 10 years earlier. He began working on Boxer, telling him that Cuate was a good guy, a good brother, and that people were jealous of him because he made a lot of money. Grajeda was in the jailhouse drug business with Stinson, so Boxer made an effort to become better acquainted with Grajeda. It wasn't difficult. Cuate wooed Enriquez with the almost mystical talk about the Mexican mafia, his devotion to it, the need to be true to its Aztec-like traditions, and the mission to bring the M.A. back to its old glory. He was a master manipulator. I succumbed to his spell, said Boxer. He led me around by the nose for a while. Do you want to make some money? Asked Cuate. Okay, fine. Cuate and Stinson cut him in on their drug operation, and from then on, Boxer was never without heroin or cash. It is always difficult for people on the outside to understand that it's quite easy for inmates to get drugs, methamphetamines, heroin, cocaine, and marijuana. Whatever drugs were available on the streets were available in the county jail. It was and still is big business. Security at county was easier to breach with a large number of inmates coming and going each day. Also, prisoners were allowed at that time to carry cash. Deputy District Attorney John Monaghan, who eventually prosecuted a number of players in the Stinson drug ring, said, at the time, there are 20,000 people in the LA County jail system. A good number of them are narcotics abusers. If you can supply the demand, you can make a lot of money. Stinson's 39-year-old wife, Debbie, helped him from the outside, where she lived in a middle-class home in Gardena, California, with 2 children, including a daughter with Down syndrome. She had no arrest record, but would buy drugs, mostly heroin, and smuggle them into the jail on a weekly and sometimes daily basis. Debbie Stinson knew a woman in South Central Los Angeles whose boyfriend was a deputy sheriff. The deputy picked up the drugs from his girlfriend and delivered them to an inmate when he went to work. He also smuggled cash payments back out. Stinson's wife had a private investigator who, during visits to the jail, handed over pins filled with cocaine to inmate drug clients. There were so many people in the visitors' room that it was impossible for deputies to keep an eye on all of them at the same time. Even prominent defense attorneys were unwittingly used to smuggling drugs. Paul Leach, a convicted robber and murderer who sold drugs for Stinson on the main line, testified that smugglers included Leslie Abramson, who gained national attention representing Lyle and Eric Menendez for killing their rich Beverly Hills parents, and prominent anti-cop defense attorney Gerald Shaleff, an outspoken police reform advocate who was a member of the Los Angeles Police Commission from 1997 to 2001, and who since 2003 has served as an LAPD civilian employee equal in rank to a deputy chief. Leach said they were ignorant about it. They didn't know what they were doing. Deborah Stinson would glue a stack of transcripts together and, halfway through the stack, cut up to an inch-thick slot in the paper, which created a little cavity where the drugs were hidden. Then she dropped the transcripts off at the attorney's office, and the unsuspecting lawyer would then deliver them to the inmates during private legal visits at the jail. Deputies were not allowed to examine legal documents. She had other methods as well. At home, Debbie took tar heroin and ironed it out into thin paper sheets. Then she dismantled a large brown legal folder by tearing back its double panel sides, placed the paper-thin heroin flat on one side, and then sealed it back up with glue. The same trick, sealing heroin between two folds of paper, worked with greeting cards. Also, Debbie would cut the cardboard and insulation out of the covers of calendars and phone books, replace it with sheets of heroin or cocaine, and glue it all back together. Another Debbie favorite was buying 2 law books at a time at the local bookstore. Back home, she cannibalized one, ripping off the binder and the guts of the cover. She then insert the paper-thin heroin and used the undamaged materials for the second new book to rebuild the cannibalized version. Next, she took the law book back to the store where she bought it, pretended she had just picked it off the shelf, paid for it again, and then shipped it back to her husband at the county jail with the heroin secreted inside. Visitors were also recruited to bring in golf ball-sized bundles of heroin, cocaine, and meth that were wrapped in balloons. They would keister the balloons to get past a search, then go to the bathroom, remove the contraband, wash off the balloons, and secretly hand it to the inmate they were visiting. Women visitors used the same method using their vaginas. Jail trustees who had worked assignments such as janitors or food deliverers were recruited to deliver dope directly to customers in their cells and collect cash payments. Needles used to inject narcotics were stolen from the jail infirmary. Inmates could actually place orders through what they called mail-out. Stinson gave inmate customers a post office box number in Westminster, California. The box belonged to his wife, Debbie. Inmates would get a relative or friend on the outside to send a money order to the P.O. box, and the drugs would be delivered to the jail. There were special incentives in place to discourage those who refused to pay their bill on time. If the payment for drugs didn't show up in a week, the cost was doubled. If not paid the second week, it doubled again. If not paid the third week, the holder of the delinquent account was killed. It worked well. Those who sold the drugs, often jail trustees who could freely move around the facility, were compensated for their efforts too. For every 6 bundles of coke or heroin sold, dealers kept 2 for themselves. One of more than a dozen dealers working for Stinson testified that he was making between $500 and $800 profit a week just for himself, selling on the main line. Boxer became a major partner with Stinson and Cuate Grajeda. They taught him how to go pro per status, which gave an inmate the right to represent himself in his own criminal case. A maximum security inmate such as Boxer, Stinson, and Cuate is allowed almost no contact with other prisoners. Acting as his own attorney, he was still able to use the system for prison gang business, drug deals, and jailhouse hits. Deputy District Attorney Frank Johnson, who prosecuted Boxer and is now a Los Angeles Superior Court judge, said at the time about ProPer, "It's basically like giving a small child hand grenades to play with. It just causes untold damage." And that for Boxer was exactly the point. ProPer gave him the right to have a legal runner of his choice. The runners were allowed daily, unmonitored face-to-face visits up to 50 minutes long. There was no glass partition between the inmate and visitor. The runner could hand over as many drug-laced legal documents as humanly possible. Debbie Stinson was her husband's legal runner. So Boxer married Little Mo's 20-year-old sister, Rosie Ruiz, and made her his legal runner. She was 5 feet, 6 inches tall, weighed 150 pounds, and had brown eyes and long brown hair. He called it a marriage of convenience. Rosie, who had a drug habit of her own, was then enlisted to slip narcotics into the jail through her legal packages. She brought in heroin, cocaine, and marijuana before she was caught, convicted, and sent to prison for 16 months. According to court documents, on one occasion, she even used her legal runner status to call an inmate down to the visiting room whom the mafia stabbed on Easter Sunday. Pro-pers were also given free access to the jail law library for 2 hours a day. A razor blade was used to hollow out the inside of as many law books as a crook might need. Messages, drugs, and weapons were kept inside. The law book had a number on it, and it became a mailbox. Boxer gave an inmate the number, and he could pick up whatever message or contraband that he needed to be passed on. Also in the library was a bank of unmonitored phones. From her 2-bedroom apartment in Boyle Heights, Rosie accepted collect calls from Boxer and set up 3-way conversations with anyone he wanted to talk to inside or outside of prison walls. He could work drug deals and find out who was coming in from the streets, who was going out, and who needed to be hit. Enriquez also utilized Rosie to implement a P.O. Box mail-out system just like Stinson's. He had a private investigator, paid for by the state, who used to deliver drugs to him during visits. And there's more. An inmate with pro per status had subpoena power. From the isolation of his cell, Boxer could get a removal order to pull anyone he wanted out of prison and down to the LA County Jail, under the ruse of saying he needed the person to be a witness in his case. Rarely was anyone who was pulled down actually a witness. Yet the mafia could use pro per to call 15 carnales from different prisons to have a mob meeting, or call someone down to do a hit or get hit. Prosecutor Frank Johnson called it outrageous and one hell of a mess. It's really laughable. It's like the sheriff and the state prison system are running a Greyhound bus service for these guys, for these people at their pleasure, to transport them all over the state, and it's really gotten out of hand. It was all a sweet, lucrative scam, and Boxer mastered it.